Hi, and welcome back. I'm Rich Struse.
And I'm John Baker.
And we're here to give you the first of three showcases from the Center for Threat Informed Defense. The first one's going to be on cyber threat intelligence, following up on the great talk you just heard from Amy and Jackie. Again, I'm Rich Struse, the founding director of the Center for Threat Informed Defense, joined by John Baker, our director of research and development, and my co-founder in the center. Just a quick review so you understand where the resources are coming from that we're talking about in these three showcase sessions. About 2 years ago, MITRE Ingenuity launched the Center for Threat Informed Defense as a privately funded research and development center focused on advancing the state of the art and the state of the practice in threat informed defense. Since our launch with 13 founding members, we've grown to 30 members who really are the who's who of global security teams from around the world. Since we launched, we've released 13 projects. All of our work is made freely available globally, and our membership really drives everything that we do. So as you hear, as we describe the various projects in this and the other two showcase sessions, please keep in mind that the companies that you see listed here are really responsible for making these resources available to everyone. Fundamentally, the center is about doing collaborative research and development. That's really what animates everything we do. And to date, with those 13 R&D projects, we've really tried to hit a cross-section of different needs and different gaps in the community. Some of our projects are focused on addressing the needs of red teams. Some are more on the blue end of the spectrum in security controls. And some are about open source software. Some are about additions to the attack knowledge base. But throughout each of these projects, they're all bound together by a common theme. Our goal is to create practical resources that security teams can pick up and use today to try to make their lives easier and ultimately to try to change the game on the adversary.
So I thought that we'd start off this showcase by talking about a couple of projects that the center took on and published that were really focused on kind of growing out and expanding the attack knowledge base itself. As Rich said earlier today in his keynote, threat-informed defense really all starts with that foundational understanding of what real-world adversaries are doing so that we can then inform our defenses. Right. So as we set up the Center for Threat-Informed Defense, one of the very first projects that we kicked off was a project to take what had been started in the initial release of Attack for Cloud and really expand upon it and refine what is now the Attack for Cloud matrix. So we got together with several of our center participants to basically fund and kind of define and refine the Attack for Cloud matrix. As a result of this, we ended up doing a broad community call for additional contributions to the cloud matrix. We significantly refactored the way we describe platforms in the cloud matrix. And we ended up adding a number of Intel references, adding data sources, and really refining what is there now today as Attack for Cloud. And this was really important to our participants because it's giving us that foundational resource tracking adversary behaviors as they attack and leverage our cloud environments to achieve their goals. So this project actually led to several other related projects. I thought I would move over next to the project that we ran through the center to create what's now the container matrix in Attack. And this one was interesting, where Attack for Cloud, that was really driven by our center participants coming to us and saying, we really like what's in the initial cloud release and Attack, but we recognize there's an opportunity to do more. And that kind of drove the development of that project. The Container Techniques project really came about the other way, which was the Attack team and its work with the community recognized there might be an opportunity to start to capture and describe techniques that adversaries use against container technologies. So we then took that, went to our participants to talk about that idea, worked with them to kind of refine what it would mean to do that research. We took this on, and really there was a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know if there was enough information out there to really justify creating a container technique matrix. So there's a bit of risk here. In the end, we found that there was sufficient intel to drive the development of the container matrix. We had big contributions and help from our center participants and from the community at large. As if you were to go back and kind of dig into the work we did here, we had, again, broad outreach to the sort of security research community to try to figure out, what intel is out there, how might we tackle this space, how should we describe and represent these techniques in attack. And as you can see today, the end result is now, if you go to the ATT&CK website, there's a collection of techniques for container technologies. And that will now be sort of evolved and sustained through the ongoing maintenance and operations of the ATT&CK knowledge base. And so these first two projects that we launched and ran through the center's research program here have significantly helped us understand, and the community at large, understand the real world adversary behaviors used in cloud technologies and container technologies.
The theme of this showcase is cyber threat intelligence. And what the two projects that John just highlighted are great examples of us expanding the ATT&CK knowledge base through center research and development projects in concert with the ATT&CK team to increase the scope of different threat intelligence resources that you as community members can refer to in your reporting. So we think that's critically important on that sort of supply side, that as you identify new adversary behaviors, as you identify campaigns, you're doing incident response, you're documenting adversary behavior, we are always looking to have a rich set of behaviors described in ATT&CK. And you'll see ATT&CK continue to evolve over time under the direction of the ATT&CK team. And the center is hard at work to ensure that we're always doing our part to expand out those areas of the ATT&CK knowledge base that the global community needs, has indicated needs expansion. I want to change gears here for a second while staying within cyber threat intelligence, because now we want to talk about something on the consuming side. And you heard Jackie make reference to TRAM in her introduction in the last session. But TRAM is an open source tool that was originally developed as a MITRE research project that the center took on and has continued to grow and evolve. And the whole purpose of TRAM is to help organizations that have a steady stream of cyber threat intelligence coming in, but that intelligence isn't already mapped to attack. So whether it's a PDF from a threat intelligence vendor, or whether it's something you scraped off a blog, that text may include everything you need to be able to map it to attack, but it lacks the actual mapping. And TRAM is designed to be an open source research platform to enable the community to improve the quality of automated mapping. So you can take a block of text in a threat report, for example, put it into TRAM, and then interactively work with the machine learning model that it has to map individual fragments of that report to specific attack techniques and sub-techniques. Our goal with this project is really to advance the state of the art, to really make it easier over time for teams to automatically ingest threat intelligence that doesn't include mappings to attack, and have high quality machine mappings to specific attack techniques. Now, I will say that this is a research platform, and it is not a tool that you can deploy today and get perfect results. I just want to be clear about that. But we think it's a great starting point and a great research platform for organizations to begin to experiment with improving the automated mapping of threat intelligence. And just a request here for the community, we're looking for people and organizations that are interested in helping us improve the training set of TRAM so that as we get more and more examples of correct mappings of free text to specific attack techniques and sub-techniques, we can continue to enhance and improve the accuracy of the model. Our next project is another open source software tool, just like TRAM, but this time really focused on addressing a different and frankly more fundamental problem. And that is, we've seen throughout the last few years, MITRE puts out the attack knowledge base. It captures all of this publicly reported information on adversary activity and their behaviors. But that's just the beginning. Organizations may, through their own activities, their own threat intelligence, or through feeds that they get from sector organizations or their vendors, an individual organization may have a more detailed view of their threat intelligence landscape as it maps to attack. And there hasn't been a good way to manage that information until now. And so I'll turn it over to John to talk a little more about the attack workbench and then give us a demo.
Sorry about that. As Rich said a few minutes ago, the attack workbench allows users to connect with and sync and pull data down from the MITRE attack knowledge base, then extend it, annotate it, and really make it their own based on the intel sources that they're tracking and the information that they're focused on in their team, in their organization. So I'm going to walk you through a quick demo here this morning. The first thing I wanted to show you is when you open up the workbench, it allows you to go and connect to some other collection of attack information. And so if we go over there, you'll see what I've done is I've connected to the MITRE attack knowledge base. And for this demo, I pulled down the enterprise attack data. The thing I wanted to highlight here is I've subscribed to that data. And so now anytime enterprise attack is updated, the workbench is pulling in those updates. And it allows me to review the updates that MITRE attack publishes and decide how to integrate those in with any changes that I might have made, right? So right off the bat, one of the key capabilities that the workbench has provided for us is the ability to synchronize and stay up to date with the MITRE attack knowledge base. So that's nice and helpful for us to start off with. And the next thing I wanted to do was just jump into a very simple use case where I, as a team, am maybe tracking new information about a technique. And so I want to just take a note on that technique. So lots of organizations have, spreadsheets, their own customized, like Jira issue tracking systems, or who knows what, to kind of track and layer their local knowledge on top of a copy of the attack knowledge base. So here, if I were to go to techniques, the first thing you'll notice is, just very simple listing of techniques, because this is allowing us to, edit and tailor information within the attack knowledge base. And it gives us a nice responsive search. So I'm going to search for scheduled tasks. You can see very quickly, I find the sub-technique that applies to Windows that's in enterprise attack, named scheduled task. So I'm going to go ahead and view that technique here, or sub-technique. And as you would expect, you can see basic information about the technique here. All the same information that's up on the attack knowledge base is now here in your local workbench copy, your local copy of the data in the workbench. So just scrolling through that briefly, you can see, and in that same way, I can have a very quick responsive search across all of these fields. For this demo, what I wanted to do was toggle this resource drawer capability on the right-hand side of my screen, and go select notes. So prior to setting up our demo today, I had added just a quick to-do here This to do is something that anybody on my team that has access to Workbench might be able to see. In this case, maybe what I wanted to do is just confirm that we have logging in place for scheduled task creation. And so now what I'd like to do is go ahead and add another note. That note's going to have a title, which is going to be to investigate, or that we're investigating recent sightings, and just expanding that note out a little bit. What we have is we've learned through an Intel group that maybe there's been some recent usage of this technique, and we wanted to go and check that we're collecting logs here and see if we have any occurrences of maybe malicious use of this technique in our organization. So I could now save that. In a few minutes, we'll come back around and take a look at where way we can see that within the context of the attack navigator. So if I were to navigate away and then come back over here, you'll see that my annotation, investigating recent sightings, is there, and my team should be able to access that and see that. So closing out of there, the other scenario that we hear really frequently from the community is that the MITRE ATT&CK knowledge base tracks a lot of Intel reports, and Rich was just talking about the TRAM capability as a research platform to help make that process a lot more efficient and effective. Of taking Intel reports and mapping them into attack. And so security teams all over the world are on their own taking Intel reports that are not tracked by attack and kind of mapping them into attack. But right now, that information tends to be stored separately. So now with the Workbench, I can go ahead and add a new Intel mapping. So for this demo, we'll go back to the home page. And the first thing I wanted to do was just open up our set of references. For the demo here, I have a new report that's related to Wizard Spider. So I just want to check and see if there's any references, or maybe that report already exists in the attack corpus. Just doing a quick search there, I can see there's no reference to Wizard Spider that aligns with the report that I have on hand. So what I want to do is go ahead and add a reference. So that reference is going to have a name. It's the Wizard Spider December 2021 update. For our demo, it was created by my favorite threat intel team, so we'll just give them credit there. And we'll note when we received that. Today is the 8th. We'll give it a title. And then at that point, we'll also set the date retrieved. Just a quick calendar picker here. So now that's basically saying that this report was published today. We are going to go ahead and download a copy of it, store it locally, and we want to add this as a reference into our local copy of attack. Just for the sake of completeness, if I want to help my team find this reference, I can go ahead and add the URL. Obviously, it's an example URL here. So if I save that, now what I've done is I've added that new report into my corpus of Intel reports. And so if I run that search again for Wizard Spider, you'll see that there's now 2 reports from my favorite threat intel team. One of them is this new December report. If I click to edit, I can see that report here. One thing to note is we've created this sort of shorthand for citations. And so I can copy that citation string and use it if I go and add information and want to reference that report that I've just added. So now the next thing I want to do is go take a look at the Wizard Spider group. After all, we have a new report about them, and that report has some new intel that I want to make sure is accounted for in my local copy of the Wizard Spider group. So if I do a quick search here, and if I go view Wizard Spider, we'll see basic information just as you would see it on the attack website. And here in my report, I noticed that it refers to, for the first time, Wizard Spider, or the first time that our team has been aware of, Wizard Spider using a tool called Sharp Edge. So what I'm going to do is scroll through the set of techniques they're known to use and take a look at the software that they're known to use. And here I quickly noticed that Sharp Edge isn't accounted for, so I want to add that. So I'm going to click Add. I will say that I'm adding software, and then again I'll have a nice search. So there's Sharp Stage. And for our demo, I'm just going to paste in our citation. And what that's going to do is it'll automatically parse that citation and associate the reference that we just added with this linkage to Wizard Spider, or linkage between Wizard Spider and Sharp Stage. So if I save that now, the Workbench does some basic validation behind the scenes, helping to maintain the integrity of the data, checks everything as we go along. You'll see now Sharp Stage is reflected there. And if we were to look at that reference, we would see that software, we would see the reference there justifying its inclusion in Wizard Spider. In a moment here, we'll jump over and take a look at all of this information in the Attack Navigator. The last thing I wanted to do was go back up to the top here, back up to our home page. It's important to note the way that the Attack Navigator and the Workbench have been designed is you can easily point the Navigator towards the data that the Workbench is creating and modifying. So now I have a copy of the Navigator running. Just doing a refresh because I've been doing a bunch of work on the database just now, my local Workbench. If I create a new layer for Enterprise, and I go and I look, for starters, we'll look over at that scheduled task technique. You'll see it now has an underline. And when I hover over it, you'll see that it has the two annotations that we looked at there. If I were to go through Workbench here and select the tools and techniques used by Wizard Spider, you would see my change to include Sharp Stage also reflected here. And so what I've now done is, really been able to create my own entire local infrastructure based off of my extensions of attack. So with that, I wanted to jump back over to our slides now. Thank you. And so just to be clear, when we talk about extensions within the context of the Attack Workbench, we really are meaning that you can go in, you can create new groups, you can refine and edit existing data like groups or software. Maybe I had additional information about that Sharp Stage tool based on that intel. I could go and modify the description of Sharp Stage, right? The other thing I wanted to emphasize is the way we've designed Workbench is that it really can be kind of the cornerstone for your local attack infrastructure. Behind the scenes, it's all using the same STIX2 representation of the attack knowledge base that the MITRE ATT&CK team uses. So it pulls in that data, allows us to extend, refine, modify it all locally, tracking all of those changes for us, allowing us to stay in sync with the MITRE ATT&CK knowledge base over time. And then it allows us to integrate with the Navigator. It allows us to run our own version of sort of a tailored attack website if you want to have a way to host that for your teams, right? And then the whole set of other tools that have been developed around accessing and manipulating that STIX2 representation of MITRE ATT&CK are all available to you as well. And then the last thing that I think is really important to drive home about the Workbench is we want to enable organizations to share information as they see fit. So if you, for example, mapped in a new intel report and for some sharing group that you participate in, some community that you're involved in, or maybe even you want to share that back with the MITRE ATT&CK team, you can do that. The Attack Workbench allows you to publish collections, allows you to subscribe to collections of attack data. So I started off by being subscribed to the attack knowledge base. I can also subscribe to other knowledge bases, and the Workbench will allow me to pull all of that information together. So as we go along here, what we're really trying to achieve with the Workbench is, of course, allowing users to stay in sync, to extend, annotate, and tailor their local attack knowledge base. But we're also trying to allow for a much richer conversation around adversary behaviors based off of that attack data model within the community. So if you're curious and you wanted to learn more, you can always follow our work up on the Center for Threat Informed Defense's website. And the thing that I'd say we're really asking for you all to do is to help spread the word. So as Rich said at the beginning of this session, our goal is to advance the state of the art and the state of the practice in threat-informed defense, and we do that through collaborative R&D. It's important to us that people know about the work, people use it, that we hear from you. So if you use it and you have questions, feedback, tell us about it so we can make it better. Share your ideas and help us advance the Center's research program.
Great. Thanks, John and Rich. Terrific briefing. Lots of good information. And I think the Center has done a lot of great work for the benefit of the community. So terrific. Thank you for giving this briefing. Our next session is going to be with Frank Duff, who's the General Manager for Attack Evals, and Kat Self, who is adversary emulation, CTI, threat hunting expert, especially with Mac OS. And they're going to tell us about how Attack Evals applies CTI. So I look forward to seeing that next session.